My legs going all the way down to my belly, stripping out, and then I crawl up from here. And now we're ready to retake the back. Let's look at what to do when our opponent beats our top leg. Okay, what if they beat the top hook, not the bottom hook? Okay, I'm here. We're here. Let's say he is able to clear this top hook and he keeps his knee tight to his chest. Well, I can either reestablish my top hook by taking my heel, move this arm please, taking my heel to the pocket of the hip so that my sole of my foot contours to his thigh. Now for me, keep your knee to your chest. From here, I'm just going to leg press that knee away as I drive my hook back in. And now from here, I can decide which configuration I want to keep. Do I want to keep symmetrical hooks? Or do I want to transition to some other forms of back control? Another way to recover the top hook, let's say he, again, pummels his knee inside my ankle, keeps the knee tight to his chest. Maybe I don't have enough room to get my foot in. The problem is his knee's too tight to his chest here. So I'm going to lock a top hip scissor where I take my calf and my knee on the outside of his hip and I cross my ankles. Okay, just like this. Now, that top hip is mine. He's going to keep this knee tight to his chest, but with this top hip scissor and with my seatbelt, I'm going to extend and keep your knee tight. Watch what happens to his knee. Comes away from the body. And now I can put that hook in and I can choose whichever lower body configuration I want. So that's beating the top hook. We can either use our heel wedge, driving the heel into the pocket of the hip, or we can use this top hip scissor extension method to pull his knee away from his chest. Let's look at a situation now where he beats the top hook and he starts to beat the top knee, meaning he gets his hip clear and he starts to turn like belly down. Yes, he's going to try to run away from back control like this. Our minimum requirement for back control is always diagonal control. Opposite side, hip and shoulder. Let's come back and explore this a little bit because I'm not sure everyone knows this. Square. Now, from here, remember that this hook stops Ant from turning to his right. If he tries to turn to his right, this hook will stop him. But he can easily turn to his left. Okay? If I have the second hook in, he can't turn either direction. But his head and shoulders can move forward. Lean forward. He can start moving away from me. So when I start going for chokes, when I start trying to control him, he can't. Now he's going to turn and face me and put his back on the floor. Yeah, and he's going to start to, yep, on the floor. Yeah, and he's going to start to escape. So come back. So you lean forward. And then as he escapes, he's going to turn his body like so. He's going to drive his back down to the floor just like so, and he's going to start to escape. Yes. So I can't just have two hooks, because while he can't turn either direction, he can't turn left and right, he can put his back on the floor, like we looked at. So what I want to do is I want to have diagonal control. So like if I have a wrist control here, remember this hook will stop him from going that way. If he tries to go that way, this hook stops him. This wrist functions just like this hook did. If he tries to turn to his left, this wrist grip will stop him. I can also use a half claw grip to stop him, where I just come underneath and I control the shoulder. For instance, let's say I'm trying to get the wrist and he's keeping his wrist away from me. I can control like so as well with a half claw grip. I've got this hook and I've got this shoulder, diagonal control. If he tries to lean forward, he can't because I control the shoulder. If he tries to turn to his left, he can't because I control the right side of his body through the shoulder. If he tries to turn to his right, he can't because I control the left side of his body through the hook. So the bare minimum is at least diagonal control. Okay, understand that's very important. So let's go back to escaping the top hip. I come here, he clears my top hook, he starts to turn belly down, he starts clearing the top hip. I still have the bottom hip control. I still have this hook. So where else do I need to control? This shoulder. Bottom hip, top shoulder. So when we're here and I feel like he's starting to clear his hips, I like to reach through and get this straight wrist grip. Now when Ant tries to turn all the way belly down, he forces himself up the turtle. Go ahead, force, go, go, go. I can ride it up, and I can stay with him. I can stay behind him. He's trying to get on top. Here's what he wants to happen. He wants to clear his hip, get his arm back across my center line, and get back on top like so. I'm trying to keep this top hip under my control, but he pushes my knee and clears the hip. And now he's starting to get away. As he starts to scramble, try to put me on bottom, I'm going to snag the wrist. And now as he tries to keep fighting, it's important that I stay behind this bottom elbow, right here. If he gets this elbow between me and him, it's over. Okay, I got to move on to something else. So from here, I'm going to keep my hips pressed into that elbow. I'm going to try to keep my left knee wedged tightly behind the elbow. He tries to pull that left elbow through, he can't. And now from here, as he tries to fight his way up to turtle, I can start to hook onto the body. I can climb up. Here, if we need to break him back down, we can always use our old friend, the power half Nelson. In a power half, where I have this near hook in, I connect my hands on the far shoulder so it's still adhering to diagonal control. Rotate. I still have this hook in, so I have his near hip control, and I control the far shoulder through either a wrist grip, a half claw grip, or the power half. Now with the power half, I use my elbow to drive his chin to his chest, sagging my body weight off his body, crunching his chin down to his chest to turn him over. Now I can recapture my seatbelt, put my top hook in, and we're good. If I can't reach the wrist, I can use a half claw grip just as well. I'm here. He escapes. If I go here, I try to get the wrist, it's not working because he's keeping it away. I try to connect my right shoulder to his shoulder, and I take my hand on the shoulder here. Now when he goes to climb all the way up to turtle, I can stay behind him, coming up. Once again, go right in my power half, crunching his chin to his chest, establish a choking arm, grab the straight wrist grip, top hook in, and we're finished. One last thing now. Let's say he clears the top hip and I can't get inside that elbow. Okay, maybe he's escaping to the control side, and when I go to get that straight wrist grip or the half claw grip, he keeps that elbow really tight to his body. Or here, he goes down, he escapes. He clears the hip. I go for the wrist. It's not there. Okay, I want to get inside the elbow. Open your elbow in. If the elbow's open, I can get underneath and grab the wrist, or go to my half claw grip. It gives me control of this shoulder. If I can't get inside, it's going to be really tough for me to control the shoulder. So what I like to do is grab on the outside, just like so, to keep some control of the grip, or some control of the shoulder. Now what's just as important, let's rotate just a little bit, is again this elbow. If I'm lazy with my left arm position, let's say I come out here and I leave that space, if he takes this arm back between me and him, I lose everything. So as I fall down, I try to connect to this shoulder. What position are we in? If he tries to turn and face me, but I keep my body tight to his elbow, so turn and face like you're going to try to recover guard, and we end up here. Does this look familiar? Yeah, what do you think?
Yes.
What do we call this?
Side scissor?
Exactly. We're left right in the side scissor position. We know how to work from the side scissor. We studied that when we studied the closed guard. I grab the far lat grip and I keep my body pressed into his elbow. He tries to bring this elbow back across my body. I don't allow it. I use this leg on the top hip. Okay, I extend back out. I come up to my elbow and I use this leg on the top hip to elevate my hips. My left knee goes to the floor, and now we're on top with one hook in. But he's in a good athletic position, so how are we going to break him down? And what's our friend here?
Power half.
Power half. Connect. We have our diagonal control on the shoulder, and I use my elbow to sag my body weight onto my elbow as I fall off his body, and I drive his chin tight to his own chest, driving through. Seatbelt, straight wrist grip, top hook. If his top knee is tight to his body and I can't get my top hook in, remember we have our heel wedge and we have our top hip scissor extension. Okay, that's I missed anything here? Upper body. Let's see. Oh, yep, that was the lower body stuff. Let's go through the upper body recovery method. So that was all. He beats the hooks, he beats the knees. We haven't talked about what happens when he beats the head trap. So let's talk about that. So that was all lower body. Upper body now. And when I have the upper body controlled with a seatbelt, I always want something called the head trap. Move your arms. The head trap is the fact that I have his head trapped between my head on one side of his head and my choking arm on the other. I need this head trap if I'm hoping to be successful with chokes. If my choking arm and my head are on the same side of Ant's head, either in this fashion or in this fashion, there is no choke. Even over here, if I lock a full figure 4 rear naked, let's rotate. I can't close off this side of the neck. My right bicep doesn't touch this artery. I try to squeeze, I might upset him, I might make it very uncomfortable for him, but he won't choke. I need my head on the other side so that my bicep closes off to the neck. Here. Now we have a nice tight connection of that bicep, and now when we apply the rear naked choke, it's going to go on nice. So that's the idea of a head trap. I always want to maintain his head between my head and my choking arm. So let's see what happens when he challenges this control. First, let's talk about something simple. He doesn't get his shoulders away from me. His shoulders are still tight to me, and he just gets his head around my head. Pummels his head to the control side. From here, I can fix this with a simple head pummel. I take my choking arm, I take a grip around either his neck. Sometimes I come up over the top of the head like so, anywhere like this. And I pull his head to the other side of my head. This will be one way of recovering the head trap. A simple head pummel there, he pummels his head around, I re-pummel my head with a hand assist. Sometimes you can do it without a hand assist. He pummels his head, sometimes you can just take your head underneath, and some people will let you do that. Against better people, they're going to fight that, go ahead. They're not going to let me underneath, and I'm going to have to use my hand to assist. Okay, now, what happens if he starts getting beats the head trap on the control side, and he starts to get his shoulder away from me? I start to lose that shoulder. That is a big issue. As I lose the shoulder, the danger is the elbow. He wants to get his elbow between me and him. If he gets his elbow to the floor, I'm no longer behind him. I'm in front of him now. So I'm here, he beats the head trap, he beats me with the shoulder. So what I do now is I take my right arm, I come here, I pummel inside and underneath the elbow, and I want to make sure he can't pummel his elbow back inside. So I don't just go here where he can take his elbow back. No, stay, keep your head where it is. Just move your elbow inside my wrist. Yes, he might re-steal the inside position. So as he's escaping, I come behind and inside the elbow, and then I'll either get a wrist grip. So if he tries to pummel his elbow back inside mine, he cannot because I have the wrist grip. Or if he's keeping the wrist away, I'll move to a claw grip where I reach wrist deep and I hold his head like so. Now when he tries to get his elbow between me and him, he cannot. Okay? With this claw grip, I can use a rear butterfly hook to push him off. Your leg scissor. Grabbing the wrist, we come up back to our favorite control, the Kimura seatbelt. And we've seen what to do from here. We go into a chair sit. Okay, so one more time on that one, because it's very important, very common. He escapes, he beats the head trap to the control side, and then he starts to escape that shoulder away from me. I cannot let this elbow come between me. I have to stay behind the elbow and inside the elbow. That's the big thing we're going to come back to time and time again. Behind and inside. I control it with either a wrist grip. I can go with a claw grip. In the gi, if you're worried about him peeling your hand position, if you're worried about this kind of thing happening, in the gi you can grab the lapel. That cross lapel grip that we saw before, like with the lapel seatbelt. Now when he tries to take my grip away, tries to move my hand away, it's stuck. If I'm here with a claw grip and he peels, he might there and then pummel your elbow inside. Yes, okay, that's what I need to avoid. When I go here, if he tries to strip my grip and pummel the elbow is stuck right where it is. So now from here, I can start to use this rear butterfly hook to either behind the knee or even underneath his hips. I can push his hips off, come back up. We take our Kimura seatbelt and we chair sit. Okay, what happens if he beats the bottom shoulder to the control side or to the choke side? Well, it's just the same thing. We're here. We go to the choke side. Now, what if he beats the head trap here? He takes my hand, he thumb posts inside my wrist, both hands, and he takes my arm up and over his head, and I've lost the head trap. We're going to do the same thing. We just make sure we stay behind and inside the top elbow. So as he's trying to escape, again, he's going to be looking to slip that elbow between me and him. Go ahead. Right there. That's what he wants to do. Go back. So as I see, I'm losing the head control. As he escapes, I'm going to take this arm, shove it in deep, and then again we can go to either our claw grip, or if I'm worried that he's going to move my hand and challenge my hand position, I grab the lapel. Now when he goes to free this elbow, I keep my left shoulder tight to the elbow. Now from here, I can move him off, come up, and it's the same story. We chair sit to back control. So we've seen if our opponent beats the simple head trap, we just simply head pummel. If they escape the shoulder to the control side, then we do a seatbelt switch where I get behind and inside the top elbow. We don't let that top elbow between us. I reach for the far side with a claw grip or with a lapel grip, and then I recover to top position, I chair sit and I retake the back. If they escape to the the choking side, and they do a duck under escape, where they take my choking hand up and over their head, then I'm already behind and inside the top elbow because that's the nature of the seatbelt. I already have the top elbow under that control. So I drive my top arm deep to either a claw grip, reaching around the neck, or I'll grab onto the lapel, just to make sure they can't get that elbow back between me and them. And then when they can't get the elbow back between me and them, I push their hips off my body, I climb back up to my knees, and I perform a chair sit and I retake the back. Now, we've gone through a lot of information on just maintaining the positions. Went through a lot of information on maintaining the mount, on what to do with the upper body, on what to do with the lower body. We went through a lot of information on how to maintain the back control, what to do with the upper body, what to do with the lower body. The last thing that's left is to look at how to transition from mount to back control and from back control to mount. We have proactive methods and we have reactive methods. Let's look at the reactive method for going to mount to back first. Reactive. We're here. Now, right now Ant's back is not exposed to me. One way I can get back control is if he exposes it to me himself. He will often do this when he wants to bridge or when he just wants to turn to his knees to maybe try to get up. If I feel him trying to bridge slowly, I put my weight onto my hands, I push off my feet, and I transition to technical mount, where my knee comes up on one side and stays down on the other. Again, if I'm here and he goes to bridge and I don't do anything, a good strong bridge, he's going to throw me out of balance because I let him get my hips all out of control. When I feel him do it again, this time I'm going to let him pass underneath me. Go ahead. and I move my weight onto my hands. If my weight is not on my hands, I can't make this transition. He goes to go ahead, it's very awkward. But when he goes, if I put my hands on the mat, go ahead, it's very, very smooth. We make this transition. Now, the big thing, if we want to take the back, get behind and inside the top elbow, just like we did when we were recovering. When I'm here, he bridges. If I can take my left hand and pummel it here behind the elbow, we can lock on a seatbelt. We could lock on a Kimura seatbelt. We could lock on a lapel seatbelt with these two grips, and whichever, we could even go with a straight wrist grip. I'd highly recommend transitioning to a Kimura seatbelt though. So with any one of these grips, either the seatbelt, the Kimura seatbelt, or the lapel seatbelt, we can use these controls to come up into a chair sit. I sit to my butt, I come across to the far hip, and I start setting my controls. So that was a reactive method. I was able to get behind and inside his elbow very easily because he did it for me. He exploded. One more time, go ahead. I get behind this and inside this elbow easy because he gives it to me. Now let's look at a proactive method where he's not giving me that position, he's not exposing his back to me on his own, and I need to do it myself. We come in, taking a cross face, and we get inside the elbow with an underhook. Remember, if we can't get inside the elbow, if he's very tight here, maybe we use a wrist pin with a pass off. Now I can get inside the elbow. Either way, once we get inside the elbow, whichever method we do, now we're going to do something called a ratchet. I want to take his elbow up and away from his body. I'm going to use my fingers along the mat to pull my hand. The way the ratchet works is that whenever I gain ground, I never lose it again. And I do that through the friction of my hand on the floor. When Ant tries to bring his elbow back to his hip strongly, he cannot. If I take my hand off the floor and I try to muscle this, and he muscles back, he will often win, and I will often lose ground that I've gained. Don't take your hand off the floor. Leave your hand on the floor. We're here. He's going to keep that elbow strong. Yes, he's trying to get that elbow in. I walk. If at any point I reach a point where I can't go any further, I straighten my arm and I lean, driving my elbow up by his ear. And now when I bend my arm again, I shoot my hand deeper. Now when he goes to bring his elbow back down, he's lost ground. Go again. I drive, and we're here. Now he goes to get his elbow back, and he's lost even more ground. I pass my head to the outside of the elbow as an extra wedge. Now when he tries to bring his elbow back, he can't. My head's in the way. Now I'm going to start climbing up and connecting my right hip to his shoulder. And now we can start locking a Kimura seatbelt. So I got up to this position here. I can start grabbing his wrist, grabbing my own wrist, and making this transition to technical mount. And now we're in the same situation we were in before with the technical mount in the chair sit. I can control with either a Kimura seatbelt, a lapel seatbelt, or even a standard seatbelt in some cases. And we hit a chair sit on the far side. So we can use a transition to technical mount. We get behind and inside the top elbow, and we can chair sit to the back. If our opponent doesn't give us the elbow for free of their own volition, we have to do it ourselves. We get a cross face and an underhook, and we use the ratchet to work that elbow up into a vulnerable position so that we can eventually get behind and inside that top elbow. Once we are behind and inside the top elbow and we have our strong seatbelt control secured. Now we can look at chair sitting to the back and exposing the back, getting to the best position in the sport. Okay, there's one more mounting proactive method of exposing our partner's back, very different than what we've looked at so far. And we do this using an outside lockdown with a slicer roll. And we do this from quarter guard. So Ant is in the mount. Let's go sideways. I'm here. Ant is making an effort to elbow escape, and as he does so, he uses his right leg to capture my ankle. I'm stuck in 3/4 mount. Now we've seen methods of freeing our ankle before, right? We've seen this. I can either get inside this here, using a butterfly hook. I can use strong crossface pressure. And I can transition to any one of our other 3/4 positions. 3/4 side knee up. 3/4 side knee down. And even reverse 3/4 side. Hopefully you remember all these options. These are all still options. You can still use these. But I'm going to show you another way. You can use this quarter guard to your advantage. Will you try my other ankle? So he has my ankle in quarter guard, my left ankle. Another way to do this is to take my right leg and a back step, bringing my knee around his hip, just like so. Now I'm going to figure 4 my own legs, and I'm going to make my right leg hook on his legs, like so. So we've gone here, he has my ankle, I back step, I figure 4, and I hook. Now I work my way down toward the hips, and I take my elbow, and I place it right here next to his tailbone. Now from here I'm going to put my left shoulder on the floor, and I'm going to take my 2 feet to the floor. As I do this, I catch the hip initially, just to make sure I don't lose this top hip, and then we work for diagonal control. Right now I have his bottom hip controlled, so the next thing I need is the top shoulder. I'm going to do that through the use of the arm. I'm going to reach through, and I control the arm. So when Ant goes to turn to his stomach, the arm stops it. If he goes to turn onto his back, my outside lockdown control stops it. Now from here, we're going to work our way inside the elbow. So I'm going to be pulling his arm past me, so I get my upper body behind and inside this elbow. We can reach through, and now I can start to pull his head toward me. Put the top hook in, we have the back. So that was our outside lockdown roll to the back. One more time over here, Ant. The outside lockdown roll, or the slicer roll. I'm here, he captures my ankle. Guys, we could also do this from half guard. If I'm in half guard, and I use my free arm or my free leg to extract my knee, and I end up in the 3/4 mount position, you could work all of our passes and ways to extract the ankle from here, or you could decide to go to your outside lockdown, cover the hips, putting your elbow by the tailbone, and then I put my shoulder on the floor, so I'm in a good rolling position. With my shoulder on the floor, I'm going to take my 2 feet toward the floor as I control Ant's hip. Now from right here, I want to get control of the arm. I'm going to do it in a slightly different way this time, but I'm just going to reach up, and I'm going to take a half claw grip. Okay, so I reach behind and inside the top elbow, and I got a half claw grip, and I use my half foot rotate. I'm here, I just exposed the back. We went from this situation here, that's pretty good, right? Yeah. I drop my elbow to the tailbone, or through, I come through, I catch a half claw grip right here to get my diagonal control. Now when he tries to turn in either direction, I have both corners of the body controlled. I put in my I put in this, and now I'm going to go to put in my top hook. He's going to try to defend the top hook. And I can use either my heel wedge or my top hip scissor extension. And we have the back. So 3 good methods of transitioning from the mount to back control. We have a technical mount with a chair sit, and we do that when they try to escape. They give us that opportunity. That's a reactive method. We also have proactive methods where I take the onus upon myself to get inside and underneath the elbow, and I use the ratchet to get the elbow out of my way so I can get behind and inside the top elbow. And then from there we finish with another chair sit. The technical mount and the ratchet are both ways of doing the same thing. They're both methods of getting behind and inside that top elbow. Then we had the proactive method with the legs. From the 3/4 mount, we take a back step, locking an outside lockdown, and then we can do a slicer roll into the back control or into a calf slicer or into a number of submissions that we'll look at in the future. There's one more topic to touch on, one more thing we haven't touched on yet that belongs in this section. Transitioning from back control to the mount. You're losing back control, and we want to minimize the damage done. Our opponent's escaping, okay? We're going to lose the back, we're going to lose position. We want to make sure that we at least don't end up in the guard. So if your opponent is going to escape on you, and it's inevitable, it's at least your job to minimize the amount of damage his escape does. If he's going to escape, let him escape to mount or to side control, but don't let him escape back to guard. All right, let's look at this. How'd your knot get way back here? There we go. Okay, so I'm in back control, and Ant is going to start to escape. It really doesn't matter. He's going to go to one side. He's going to start to beat the hook exactly. When I see this happening, one thing is still the same. I want to stay behind and inside the top elbow. As Ant escapes, go ahead. If he slips this elbow between me and him, he's going to be able to make space and get his legs between me and him. Okay? Perfect. As he escapes, gets over, I want to make sure I'm doing 2 things simultaneously. There are 2 things to consider. One, I need to get underneath and inside the elbow. And honestly, it's equally important. I shouldn't say more, less or more. It's very important that I get underneath and inside the elbow. Behind and inside the elbow. The other thing I need to do is I need to take my foot over and I need to back heel onto the far hip. If I leave my foot here, he's going to trap me in half guard. As I come up to the top position, I end up in half guard. So he escapes, I get behind and inside the elbow, and I pass this foot to the far hip, back heeling. Now, when he goes to try to elbow escape, he can't use this arm because I'm behind and inside the elbow. If he tries to use this arm to help escape in some way, he can't. So he's only working with one arm. So I need to make sure that I back heel strongly enough that he can't take my foot and put it